Hello everyone, welcome to Task IS. Today we will discuss about chapter marriage which is under unit 2.3. So I am discussing alternatively biological as well as sociocultural anthropology so that your interest sustain in this subject for a long time. These are subtopics under this chapter: marriage definition and why marriage is considered as universal, laws of marriage, these are sub conditions. Now types of marriage, functions of marriage, marriage regulations, preferential, prescriptive, proscriptive, marriage payments, where dowry and bride wealth. Firstly, laws and regulations. So we have discussed in our ethics class, laws and regulations have complementary nature. That's why I will discuss most of these terms which are mentioned in laws, which will be discussed under marriage regulations heading. I'm just explaining that how I will proceed in this chapter. And one more request is that although this topic seems very easy, but you have to mention a lot of examples as well as proper definition by thinkers, which is necessary. Otherwise your answer will look more kind of general studies answer. Another piece of information is that PDF of all ethics as well as anthropology lectures are available in Telegram channel, and link of that channel is given in description of video. Also, if you are enjoying these lectures and you want more efforts from our side, then please like, share and subscribe Task IS. Let's start today's lecture, marriage. In simple terms, marriage is a phenomena found in all type of societies, though the pattern of marriage differ in different societies. So, as different societies have different kind of cultures, then according to their culture, they have different patterns of marriage. But it is considered that marriage is universal and it is found in all societies. Marriage by most anthropologists has been described as a universal phenomena. But the debate continues as to how marriage came into existence. Then that means there is also a debate regarding evolution of marriage. In the early years, social thinkers and anthropologists, which were known as evolutionists, they were of the opinion that human beings lived in state of promiscuity. That means in that stage there was no rules and regulations with whom an individual should mate or marry. That means at that case there was randomness in selecting mate partner, where individual marriage did not exist. This slowly gave rise to group marriages, because when this kind of randomness exists, then there is possibility of so much chaos in society. To reduce that randomness, now group marriages were organized to bring regulation and general order in society, where either many men were married to several women, this is a kind of group marriage, and or several men were married to a single woman, or if single woman was married to a large number of men. So there are possibilities of group marriages. So firstly there was promiscuity stage, and after that group marriages. Later in the day, the natural instinct of jealousy embedded in human beings, and also combined with it, now as time progressed, now surplus arose, especially when agriculture developed. So there was a need to have a proper inheritance pattern so that the private property of an individual can be transferred to its next progeny. This concept of private property combined with this jealousy even among kinsmen, this led to origin of single marriages to restore harmony in society, because in group marriages there was issue in regarding deciding paternity. So till now we have discussed that how marriages have evolved, but this was one point of classical evolutionists who have said that earlier state of promiscuity, later group marriages, and later monogamy, that were seen in modern societies, where one man marries with another woman. But other thinkers have different views, because some of the thinkers have believed that it is idea of Charles Darwin, who have earlier mentioned that this jealousy part even present in ancestor of human being. That's why this stage of promiscuity was absent in human being. And even if we see about most primitive tribal society in present India or in other societies as well, this state of promiscuity is not observed till now in any of the case studies. That's why this idea of evolutionary pattern of marriage is debatable. Now after that, some scholars have given their definitions to define marriage, and when any answer regarding marriage you have to write, please start with definition. Now George Peter Murdoch, he has defined marriage as a universal institution that involves residential cohabitation, that means physical closeness, economic cooperation, for example division of labor, formation of nuclear family. So he have focused more on aspect of formation of nuclear family through marriage as an institution. So these characteristics according to him define marriage, which is universal, where residential cohabitation should be there, economic cooperation and formation of nuclear family. But this marriage has not explained all kinds of marriages, because there are a lot of variations in kinds of marriage. For example, couples do not live under same roof in Nair society. If we discuss about Nair society, then they are matrilineal society. In that society, it is the sister and its brother who will live there. Consider this is sister and another sister, and this is her husband. This symbol is used for woman and this symbol is used for this symbol, or maybe like this rectangular or triangle, this is used for man. So then their progeny, you can consider it maybe a girl or a boy. So now transfer of property will happen through female side, and here in their household only sisters of that female had, and also male as well as both female progeny of that sister, or all the sisters will live here together. But here after marriage, now husband will not live with them. Actually here authority will transfer from brother of that female head to his son. Here role of husband of this woman is not there. I hope these points are clear, and I will discuss them in later, because after these topics of marriage, family, kinship, I will discuss some unique examples where I will discuss this Tarawad or residential habitat of Nair society. Firstly, think that they are matrilineal society. In those societies, here in household there is residential cohabitation of blood relatives, but not of husband wife. This is main point. Now Westermarck, he has also defined marriage in his own ways, had emphasized on marriage as a recognized union between a man and woman, that the spouse lives together and the couples have clearly recognized mutual sexual rights. Though according to him also, this is a condition that they should live together and they have clearly recognized mutual sexual rights. But again, this mutual sexual rights, this obligation is also not followed. For example, in Khasi society, after marriage, when women enter back into her maternal house, then she have freedom to have mating relation with any man except her husband. So it is some kind of exceptional behavior. Now Kathleen Go. Now next definition is given by Kathleen Go, because she have noted that there are different variations, and she have earlier studied about Nair society. So after that, she has defined marriage as a relationship between a woman and one or more other persons. So here she have included woman as a one individual, and here can be a woman or any other man, which provides that a child born to the woman under such circumstances not prohibited by rules of relationship. That means here this child is legitimized by society and is according full birth status, rights common to normal members of his society or social stratum. That means all privileges that are provided to other children born in that society are provided. Those all privileges and rights are provided to that child. So she have covered this woman and woman relationship, woman and man relationship, and also cases of one woman and several man marriages. But here man marriage is not included. So drawback of this definition is that Ajande of Sudan, in those society where marriage is based on homosexuality, is not included. In Ajande of Sudan, if this is man and this is woman, there is a marriage. After that, if you see, if this woman has died, then this man can marry with another man, because consider they have one child, that is this. So if they have this progeny, then to take care of this child, this man A marry with another man B. So now this man B will take care of this child, but here sexual relationship between man A and man B are not there. So now definition of Kathleen Go is not explaining these kinds of marriages which are found in Ajande of Sudan. Now after all these definitions and variations and also their drawbacks, Notes and Query has mentioned that although there are different variations, but we can't include every marriage by a universal definition, so we should focus on major marriage types. And then they have defined marriage as a union between a man and a woman, which is monogamy, and which is observed in most of the societies, such that the children born to the woman are recognized as a legitimate offspring of both the parents. But issue still persist. For example, extramarital relations are allowed in some societies that I have discussed. Due to high divorce rates, idea of permanency of this relationship of marriage is also now not valid, because now divorce rates are increased, separatism cases are increased, matrifocal or patrifocal societies are increasing. That means here children are living only with their mother, or children are living only with their father. In some societies, man and woman does not involve in any marriage contracts. That means now live-in relationship are also rising. So these are kind of some rare events. Now deviations in marriage. So here you can discuss about any example. For example, Ajande of Sudan, you can write out. Then also Khasi, where extramarital relations are observed. Now live-in relationships, which are common even in metropolitan cities of India. Also single parent families, gay marriages. You can write a lot of examples here. And female sexual relationship among Swai Muslims in Mombasa, that is Kenya, and which are found that relationship between females are perfectly acceptable in that society. So I found this unique example, that's why I wrote this. Thus existing definitions of marriages are debatable. This does not mean that institution of marriage is not universal, because after seeing a lot of variations, it is observed that there is some kind of relation between a man and woman exist in any society, and now focus is on culture relativism. So that's why we are now considering that every culture and every type of marriage and their social institution is valid. So we can't decide that if A, B, C, all these conditions are fulfilled, then only this type of marriage is right and this is wrong. So these kind of definitions are not valid in present time. So till the data pertaining to every ethnographic situation is obtained, analyzed, and elements common to it are identified, the debate over universal definition of marriage remains unsolved. So it is saying that we are not reaching to a universal definition of marriage because we have not studied and analyzed each and every society. Because if we discuss about very remote areas and their societies like Hawaiian society or many tribal groups living in remote parts of India or Pacific or Indian Ocean, then we will came to know about another different kind of or rare kind of marriages like ghost marriages. So till that time we have not analyzed all these societies, which seems impossible. Till that time this debate still continues, but anthropologists now agreed that any kind of this relationship which provides any of these functions of marriage can be considered as a marriage. Now, laws of marriage: endogamy, exogamy, and incest taboo. This I will discuss under heading marriage regulations. But these two terms are important, hypergamy and hypogamy, that I will discuss here. Hypergamy is a system of marriage where a man gets his daughter married to a person of the same or higher social economic status. So if this is a family, now he has his daughter, now he will marry his daughter with some individual A. So this individual A should belong to a higher caste status or class status or similar to status of girl's family. This type of system is found in stratified societies, that means where social stratification occur, like Hindus, where stratification occur on the lines of caste, when it is practiced to retain the social status and prestige of the group. In Hindu society this is known as anuloma, because in every society, in almost all societies, there is this idea that girls or women is considered as a part of social pride of any family. So after marrying their daughter to a equal or a higher status, then that family retain higher social status or prestige in that society. But consider if this daughter is married to a person who have lower status, then this is considered as shameful for that particular family. So in hypergamy, here if we consider this as a groom and this she is bride, then equation is like this. That means status of man is either equal or higher to girl. But if this situation is opposed or reversed, then this is known as example of hypogamy. So hypogamy is just the opposite of hypergamy. Here a man gets his daughter married to a man of either same or lower social and economic status. So it is not only about social status but also economic status, because caste and class, if you discuss about Indian society, this caste and class dimension is very much interrelated. In Hindu society this is known as pratiloma. Anuloma, that means which is right, and pratiloma, that means which is against any established order. Pratiloma or hypogamy refers to intercaste marriages which are not approved socially. Yes, you can discuss that if that girl is belonging to any Brahmin family and this boy is belonging to Shudra family, then this is considered as an example of pratiloma marriage. And when I mention that this is right or wrong, so this is according to social stereotypes. This is not my personal opinion, because I believe that intercaste marriages are root for social equality in our society, so they should be promoted. Now, types of marriages. Here we will discuss different variations in marriage pattern. Depending on the type of society, marriage patterns and style also vary, because every society will have its own culture, and culture includes some kind of customs, rules to marry, and when these rules and customs are followed, then the variations in marriage pattern is observed. So monogamy and polygamy, these are two different kinds and major classification of marriage system. In monogamy, one man and one woman, this is observed, but in polygamy there can be a different variations. In polygamy, there can be a situation where one man marries a large number of women, and this is polygamy. But in polygamy, another situation may be where one woman marries a large number of men, so there will be multiple men. This is also case of polygamy. These both cases can be possible into polygamy. Now, we have discussed about monogamy, that is one man, one woman. Now, monogamy is a form of marriage in which the practices have only one spouse at one time. Now, serial monogamy and straight monogamy. So, monogamy is divided into two parts: serial monogamy and straight monogamy. In serial monogamy, individuals are permitted to marry again, often on the death of the other spouse. So that means in serial, this is monogamy is observed. So consider this is individual, and he has married to this girl, but after marriage, this a person has died, then she can marry to another man. So at a point, she have followed a monogamy, but due to some reason or after divorce, she can marry another individual. So this is monogamy in serial, or after divorce, but they cannot have more than one spouse at one time. Now, straight monogamy. In straight monogamy, remarriage of the individuals is not allowed. That means if once divorce happened, or once death of partner or spouse has happened, after that there is no possibility of again marrying. This is example of straight marriage. So in modern societies like USA, where rate of divorce is high as well as rate of remarriage is high, then the serial monogamy is observed. But in societies like Hindu society, where stigma of divorce is attached, where and also there is some kind of stigma attached with remarriage of widows, so in those societies straight monogamy is observed. In the Western world, divorce rate is increasingly higher and serial monogamy is observed. In the United States, where divorce rate is high but only monogamy is legal, serial monogamy is noticed. In societies like the Hindu society, monogamy pertains to non-serial monogamy, where a man has a single wife throughout his lifetime. Now, polygamy. So we have discussed polygamy, and polygamy can include polygyny and polyandry. So polygamy, it can be polygyny and it can be polyandry. Polygamy is a form of marriage in which an individual has more than one spouse at a given point of time. Here individual can be man or woman, or married to more than one individual. In polygyny, here you can think about women, gyne because gynecologist, so it talks about women, and poly means many, so many women. So here man should be one and woman should be many. In polygamy, when a marriage involves one man with many women, it is known as polygyny. Sororal polygyny, the wives of a man, if they are sisters or related with each other, then this is known as sororal polygyny. That means here one man and a large number of women, but these women are related by blood or kinship relationship, then this is known as example of sororal polygyny. Now, non-sororal polygyny, it is a type of marriage in which the wives are not related as sisters. That means this is man, this is another woman. Here this man will marry another woman, but these two women are not related with each other. The rules of residence in sororal polygyny differ from society to society. So there again variations observed. For example, in Nair society, where women of Nair society is married by Lambudri Brahmin, then this Lambudri Brahmin man can have wife from different communities, because generally one wife is belonging to Lambudri family only, and one or even multiple relations with Nair women. So this is observed, and this is an example of non-sororal polygyny. Now polyandry, here poly means many and andry related to man. So it derives its names from the Greek word poly means many and andros mean man. Thus in this type of marriage, a woman is married to more than one man. Societies where polyandry has been found are Tibet, Canadian Arctic, northern parts of Nepal, Nigeria, Bhutan, parts of India and Sri Lanka. Now, as we have discussed, polygyny is divided into two. That means sororal polygyny and non-sororal polygyny. Similarly, polyandry is divided into two: fraternal polyandry and non-fraternal polyandry. So these are types of polyandry marriage. So fraternal polyandry refers to a marriage in which woman is married to two or more brothers. So you can discuss that fraternal polyandry example was in history, where in Mahabharata Draupadi was married to 5 brothers or 5 Pandavas. So that is example of fraternal polyandry. In non-fraternal polyandry, the husbands need not have any close relationship prior to the marriage. So now this fraternal part you can relate with fraternity, which is mentioned in our preamble. Although in preamble its meaning is more inclusive, but fraternal word shows close relationship. So that kind of brother relationship or kinship relationship is observed in fraternal polyandry, but not observed in case of non-fraternal polyandry. In the recent past, Todas of southern India practiced both fraternal as well as non-fraternal polyandry. These Todas tribe live in Nilgiri Hills, where the husbands were either brothers or related kinsmen, but with the changing age, monogamy has been observed. Now polygynandry, this is another different type of marriage. Here, variety of polygamy pertains to a marriage where several men are married to several women, or a man has many wives and woman has many husbands at any given time. In polygynandry, it was observed that earlier it was polygyny or polyandry, but with time they have led to emergence of polygynandry. For example, Mazumdar has observed that in case of Khasa tribes, there was practice where a elder man married a girl, and now this girl became wife of many brothers, because if elder brother has married, then she automatically becomes wife of younger brothers of this man. But later any of the younger brother marries another woman. Now the second woman also became wife of different men. That means she also became wife of elder brothers. So now this led to growth of a marriage where several men and several women are involved. So this type of marriage is known as polygynandry. Now group marriages means the marriage of two or more women with two or more men. So from group word you can hint that in the beginning itself there is presence of marriage of two or more women and two or more men. Here the husbands are common husbands and wives are common wives. Children are regarded as children of the entire group as a whole. But there are still debates whether these kind of marriages were exist or not, because it shows that these group marriages probably have more chaos and more fighting, more jealousy in that social group. Now functions of marriage. So one thing you have observed, when you discuss about these kinds of variations and different cultural patterns, your mind automatically open up, and now you are forced to think about how these so much variations can exist in any country like India, and you should have cultural tolerance for other practices. Now functions of marriage. Firstly, biological function. Simply, as different thinkers like Mazumdar, who was belonging to functionalist school, and he has mentioned that different social institutions have a work that is in fulfilling individual needs. So this sexual needs of an individual is fulfilled by marriage as a social institution. So this biological function is done by marriage. A society basically channelizes the sexual rights through the institution of marriage. So it helps in mating within the rules and regulations as ascribed by society. This helps in maintaining the norms of incest taboo as well. What is incest taboo? I will discuss later. Now, economic functions. In order to do away with the discrimination of labor by sex, marriage comes as a protective measure. So it shows that it is marriage and later on birth of family which helps in division of labor in society in terms of sex, because there are some functions which can be performed better by men and some by women. So by marriage this economy division of labor is done, and so that specialization of occupation or specialization of work is divided into our society, wherein the men share their produce with the wives, and marriage leads to an economic cooperation between man and woman during the survival of every individual in society. And in economic part you can also mention that because of long gestation period during pregnancy time, that is 9 months, and after that also around 6 months or 1 year time that a woman need to recover fully. So during that so much dependency time where women need any man to help her during that survival time, difficult times, so this is an institution of marriage which have provided security and financial and emotional, both different kinds of security to that woman as well as that child. So here marriage has helped in this continuous cooperation and flourishing of human civilization as a whole. Now social function. So marriage is the way to forming a family. Yes, a marriage sanctions the status of both husband and wife in a society, because after marriage it is considered that both husband and wife have more social prestige and they have gained a more socialized legitimate social status in society. Thus they are also collectively accepted by society as husband and wife. Marriage helps in forming new kinsmen and widening their network, and you can also relate it with religious function as well, because after family or after marriage, where some rituals like Shraddha in Hindu society, where only husband and wife collectively can perform some rituals. Now marriage regulations. So some regulations are put that what kind of marriages or which partner an individual can choose. Societies have their own norms when it comes to marriage, whom to marry and who is bound by these rules. So there are 3 different regulation means. Firstly is prescribed, second is preferential, and third is proscribed. Firstly is prescribed. So these rules are those which an in family or society will say that you should follow it, otherwise there will be some punishment. So here is some punishment. Now preferential means preference. So here society or family will say that you should prefer these. Although if someone is not following those rules, then it's okay, maybe some minor punishment. Now proscribed, these are strict rules that if family or society will put, and if violation of these rules happen, then punishment will be severe. So these are different rules, and also it depends on which kind of family or which kind of society an individual is living, where sometimes these prescribed rules also turns into proscribed rules. For example, these caste barriers in some society is put into prescribed norm, but in some society it is so strong that it sometimes turn into proscribed rule. For example, honor killing cases in case of Haryana or Western Uttar Pradesh. So this level of punishment also vary from society to society, but majorly these three difference are given. Now firstly is prescribed norms, rules when strictly followed even though when very few members of stable category are available is termed as prescribed rules. That means here parents will say that you should do this, you should not do this, and here restriction of choice is also done, because if someone say that you have to marry in your caste only, then of course choices that an individual can now enjoy reduce. A man or woman might be prohibited from acquiring a mate who does not fall under the stable category. For example, in Hindu society, a woman belonging to a higher caste cannot marry a man belonging to a lower caste than her. The rules of either endogamy or exogamy are also prescribed norms in many societies. So endogamy means you have to marry within your society, within that group. For example, within caste group. Exo means you have to marry outside. For example, in any caste there are also different gotras. So it is said that marriage is exogamy when we discuss in terms of gotras. So rules of endogamy and exogamy are prescribed norms where a man has to adhere while acquiring a mate. Endogamy means marriage within a group, exogamy outside that group. Endogamy includes marriages within the believers of the same faith or religion. Yes, you can discuss endogamy means within any social community, any caste, religion, in Hindu society, and within members of the same tribe also. So within tribes also there is some conditions that you have to marry within this tribe. For example, Naga tribes prefer to marry with the individuals of their own member of that particular tribe only. Now preferential norms. These rules which are preferred but not strictly followed are known as preferential norms. Cross cousin marriages in many societies is seen as a preferential norm. Cross cousin marriages, parallel cousin marriages, these are rules which are put under preferential norms. In societies where endogamy is prevalent, parallel cousin marriage is preferential norm, because endogamy, that means you have to marry within your community or your family. Then parallel cousin marriages are followed. What these parallel cousin marriages I will discuss just a minute. Among such societies, marriage between first cousin is permitted and rules of lineage exogamy is practiced. So now I should discuss this. This is any male, so you can represent it with this symbol also. Now this is female, this is, we can represent it as father, and this is mother. Here they have this, their two children. She is female, this is male. And ego, because now we will discuss any relation with respect to ego. That means this is sister of ego, this is father, this is mother. Now this shows that all are related with blood relationship, these all members, but this double tick shows that here they have marriage relationship. And when this line came in this form, then that means these two individuals, Ego and his sister, are result of this marriage between FA and MO. I hope this diagram is clear to you. Now, this is father's brother because this is male symbol. Now, that means this is aunt of this Ego. Now, this is father's sister, or you can simply say this is Bua of that Ego, and this is now husband of that father's sister. Here, this is mother's sister. So that means this is your Mosaji, and marriage relation, this is mother's brother, that is Mamaji, and this is Mami. No, now after that, these relatives, or now these are your siblings. Okay, so if sibling is of your relatives, that means if this is your father and this is of same sex, your father and father's brother are of same sex, then the children of your father's brother are your parallel cousins. But if gender of your father and your father's sister is different, of course that is different, then the children of that aunt are put in category of cross cousins. Now you can discuss here also, this is your mother, then the all siblings of your mother who have same sex as of your mother, that means if there are many mother sisters, then the children of mother sister are your parallel cousins. But as your mother's brother have different sex, then those children are known as cross cousins. I hope all this diagram is clear to you now. Now another fact is that parallel cousins marriage, that means this is Ego. Now this Ego can marry with this girl. Now this Ego can also marry with this girl. These are both example of parallel cousins, and remember that this parallel cousin marriage can occur alongside your father's line as well as along your mother's line. I want to discuss this part because sometimes students have this feeling that parallel cousin marriages or cross cousin marriages are generally only towards one family relation, one parent relation, that is they are generally towards parents, towards father's side. Now cross cousin marriages, here Ego, then this cross cousin marriage can occur with father sister's daughter or with mother's brother's daughter. So these are example of cross cousin as well as parallel cousins marriage. So in societies where endogamy is observed, parallel cousin marriages are observed. Among such societies, marriage between first cousin is permitted and lineage exogamy is practiced where cousin belong to different lineages is preferred. So now you can simply say that here parallel cousin marriages are generally observed in case of Islamic societies. In many of the Islamic societies, a man marries his father's brother's daughter. So this example is noticed in most of the Islamic societies and known as parallel cousin marriages. Although this is a very rare phenomena, the Kurds of eastern and southeastern Turkey still continue this practice of parallel cousin marriage. Now cross cousin marriages are also preferential norm in societies where rules of exogamy is adhered. In some societies, these parallel cousins are considered as endo group, but outside that parallel cousin marriage group is considered as exogamy part. That's why this statement is saying that cross cousin marriages are considered as a part of exogamy group. Now matrilateral cross cousin marriages are common in many of the matrilineal societies like Kachins and Purum. So here this example of matrilineal cross cousin marriages, that is Ego, and here matrilineal cross cousin marriages is this. So this example is observed in Kachin and Purum. Similarly, patrilineal cross cousin marriages are also observed and in societies like Kerala or Andhra Pradesh. So surveys like National Family Health Survey have mentioned that it is 10 to 15% of cross cousin marriages, that is patrilineal cross cousin marriages, are observed in these societies. Besides the above, levirate and sororate are also part of preferential rules. In levirate, here if this is man and this is a woman, so after marriage, after death of that individual, now this girl will marry with brother of that individual. So this is example of levirate. But in sororate, if this is man and this is woman, but after death of that female, now this man will marry sister of that female. So this is example of sororate marriage. Now levirate and sororate are also prescribed norms for widows and widower in few societies. Levirate is a marriage form in which after the death of an elder brother, younger brother married widow. The term levirate is derived from the Latin word levirate, means husband's brother. Similarly, sororate means marry with the deceased wife's sisters. So sororate on the other hand is practice in which a widower marries his dad's wife's sister. Proscriptive rules. So this is a third type of rules where punishment is very severe. These rules prohibit certain type of marriages. Widely prohibited ones are those of mother, son, father, daughter, sister, brother. So there was a term that is incest taboo. So incest taboo means mating relation between the close ones which have blood relationship. That means sister, brother, father, daughter, mother, son. So these are very close relationship, and mating between these individuals, these close group individuals, is detrimental to existence of family as an institution as well as morality and ethical norms of any society. So these are very strict rules which are followed, and in this category of rules incest taboo is put. So incest taboo have been discouraged based on various theories because it leads to inbreeding. Inbreeding, that means mating between those groups which have similar kind of genetic traits or genetic composition, and due to that its biological negative consequences occur, because generally during mating it is observed that if two individuals have different genetic composition, then that will lead to hybridization, and after hybridization new characters will emerge, and that will help in evolution of good traits. But if those A and B are belonging to same genetic composition, then that will lead to inbreeding, because here similar characters will both individuals have, and after that there are chances that some recessive characters or some disease, inheritance disease, will appear, and here progeny will not have superior characteristics. So now this that means after inbreeding, now characteristics of progeny in terms of quality will reduced. So it leads to inbreeding. So that means biologically it is harmful. It leads to disruptions in the family and restrict the formation of wider alliances, because if marriage is restricted within a family, then the social relationship or kinship relationship which is formed by marriage with different communities, that will not occur. Now we will discuss in detail what is incest taboo and related theories with it. So incest taboo is a type of proscriptive regulation wherein is a marriage between the mother, son, father, daughter, sister, brother is prohibited. In many societies, it sometimes extends to fifth generation as well, and exceptions to incest taboo was observed, and it was observed in royal families of Egypt and the present tribes of Hawaiian tradition as well. Here in Egypt, it was mentioned that these royal families have superior blood qualities, and they don't want to impure that blood by mating with lower class of or lower families. Or another reason was mentioned that as royal families have a good amount of property, so they don't want that their property should be distributed among other people by marrying outside their family. And in Hawaiian tradition this practice is followed, but there is not such any reason is given why this practice is followed in this particular society. So anthropologists try to explain existence of incest taboo based on the following theories. Although different theories have different points, but no one can explain why this practice is originated and it continues or sustained for a long time. But lastly, anthropologists have concluded that maybe due to all these factors, or maybe some factors are present in one society and other factors in other society, and maybe all these factors have some role in explaining why incest taboo is present. So now first theory is to avoid inbreeding, because inbreeding have biologically negative consequences, because high infant mortality rate and high maternal mortality rate was also observed. So it is now widely accepted that disadvantages of inbreeding definitely outweigh the advantages. But the elusive question here is, how could pre-scientific people or tribal societies, how they can relate that this infant mortality rate is high because of inbreeding only, could have possibly known about the deleterious effects of inbreeding. But some other thinkers have mentioned that it is actually a experience of long term effects, where some communities has observed that if they are undergoing inbreeding, then the child mortality cases are higher. That's why they have discontinued this practice. Now familiarity tends to avoidance. So it shows, it was explained by Westermarck, and according to him, if this boy and girl both are brought up together, then they have some kind of familiarity, and this led to disinterest between these two individuals, and they don't have interest in mating with close ones. It was also observed in case of Israeli kibbutz. So Israeli kibbutz is also one kind of practice, a household where parents of all children will work together in field. So they are busy in economic function, but the children of all families will live together here in any apartment, and their maintenance is done by state. So here family or parents don't have any direct relation with their children. They, after some time or within some gap, they used to come and see about their children, but there is no socialization by parents of their child, and here all children live together in any apartment. So due to this closeness of all children, they don't have any interest in sexual relationship with each other. So this theory explains that due to this familiarity, which always present in case of family between mother or son or brother and sister, and all this led to disinterest, which led to incest taboo. So it was found in Israeli kibbutz group and the Taiwan society of raising the daughter-in-law from the childhood. So in Taiwan society also it was observed that upbringing of the possible future spouses, if done at early age, then that led to disinterest and reduce the sexual attraction towards each other. Now prevention of disruption in the family. So Malinowski mentioned that most important function of incest taboo is prevention of disruption in nuclear family, because if there is a tendency of mating relation between mother and son, then that led to conflict of interest between son and father, and those two individuals can't live in one household. Now helps in forming wider alliances. So Levi-Strauss have mentioned that it is due to incest taboo that individuals don't marry within family, and they marry with outside with another family, and this led to a close relationship between different families, and some kind of alliances are formed. So now we have discussed incest taboo, different theories, how it was evolved and why it is sustaining for a long time. Now, ways of acquiring a mate, although this is not mentioned directly in syllabus, but UPSC has asked some questions related to this statement, so I will discuss here. And this statement and different means of acquiring mate is discussed by Majumdar. Different Indian anthropologists, I will discuss them when we will discuss about paper 2, but as marriage topic is given in paper 1, so I have to discuss these ways of acquiring mate here. Now, marriage by negotiation. So here 7 to 8 points were given by Majumdar. So firstly, marriage by a negotiation. So in negotiation here, different male side as well as female side group will discuss and dialogue and then negotiate what kind of relation they should establish, and also negotiation regarding ritual types, regarding payments which are generally observed with marriage. So marriage by negotiation, in such a system either the girl's family or the boy's family puts forward a proposal for marriage through a third party or a mediator. Generally in arranged marriage, this mediator role is important. This third party is generally someone known to both bride and groom's family. In Indian context, it is also known as arranged marriage. Complex societies like Hindu Society of India, China, Europe and America, all these societies have followed this marriage by negotiation. And now, due to contact of tribals with complex societies, they also started to following this method of acquiring mate by marriage of negotiation. Now, marriage by exchange. So here exchange word shows that some kind of woman exchange is observed. So Levi Strauss in his alliance theory have mentioned that earlier, as man was poor because there was not that much surplus, so to establish relationship with other families or other society, what they have done, that is they have women as a property and they start exchanging. That means sister of any individual is given and as an exchange to take woman of another group as a wife, because due to incest taboo an individual can't have mating relationship with sister, but he can exchange that sister for getting wife. So this phenomena is known as marriage by exchange. Such a system, so in such a system, bride price or bride wealth, that we will discuss later, is also observed. Whichever is applicable to the society is waived off by marriage through exchange. So it is mentioned that some payment is sometimes given for taking a bride from any family. That means if a man is marrying this female, so generally he gave some kind of compensation to that family of bride, because this bride is also an economic resource. She was performing some kind of economic activities, so due to that their family have some loss, economic loss. That's why this groom will give some kind of compensation or bride wealth to this bride's family. But if this exchange has done, then there is no need of bride wealth, because in exchange of taking a woman they are also giving their sister. So this statement is explaining this phenomena only. This happens generally if there are daughters or sisters for exchange for the grooms. This helps in not only forming an alliance but also strengthen the bond between existing groups. Yes. Examples of such exchanges are shown in societies of Australia, Melanesia, Tiu of Nigeria, and also in some parts of India as well. For example, Muria Gonds and Bega of Bastar, these tribal groups also perform marriage by exchange. Now, marriage by service. So now consider that this is an individual and he wants to marry with this girl, but this family of this bride is demanding a lot of bride wealth and this man is very poor. So what he will do, he will ask for some kind of service. That means he will say, to head of this bride's family that he is ready to perform some kind of service in the field or at the home of this bride, so that the compensation amount that he will give in terms of bride wealth, he will pay that amount by performing some kind of service. So marriage by service is found among some of the tribes. For example, Nagas of northeast India. Here bride wealth forms a part of the marriage negotiation, and if the groom's party is not able to pay the bride wealth, then the compensation is done through the service. Now next is marriage by probation. Here it involves probation, that means living together of male as well as female before marriage. That means here both live together and they will check whether they will have this kind of good companionship to live together for long. So if they were ready and they are agree, then they go for marriage. Otherwise some kind of compensation is given by male to the female, because here male generally live with female in female household. So marriage by probation involve the consent of the bride's parents along with the girl's consent, wherein the groom stays at the bride place on trial basis. So it is like experiment, or you can say it is some kind of version of now live-in relationship. Here in the groom is allowed to stay with the girl so that they both get to know each other temperament, and if the girl likes the boy, the marriage take place, as the boy has to pay compensation in cash to girl's family. So in tribes of Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur, this kind of practices is observed. Now marriage by capture. So it shows that some kind of forceful activity is done. So but it is not necessary that it is actually forceful, because in some societies this is kind of ritual or ceremony of capture, which shows that now this marriage is legitimized. Marriage by capture is found in many societies. The capture can be physical capture or ceremonial one. So this can be of both in terms of forceful as well as non-forceful. Among the tribes of Yanomami of Venezuela, northern Brazil and Nagas of Nagaland, this practice is observed when these tribes go for raids where the men from one village capture and take home females of the other village and marry them as wives. Now marriage by intrusion. This is a type of marriage wherein a girl forces her way into the boy's house and forces him to accept her as his spouse. Such marriages are seen in Birhor and Ho of Bihar. So it is intrusion, that means forceful entry of a woman into the boy's household. And here some kind of torture or some kind of social stigmas are also associated, where women have to face a lot of hardships. But in spite of these, if she continued to survive in that household, then that family as well as that boy is socially forced to accept that girl as a wife. Now marriage by trial. It is a process in which the groom have to prove his strength and valor by claiming his bride. Such marriages by trial are still found in many societies in India, such as Bhils of Rajasthan, Nagas of Nagaland. So in Bhils of Rajasthan, it is observed that during any festivals there are some difficult tasks are given, and if that boy is ready to perform those tasks and he performed those tasks very successfully, then he have option of choosing any girl from that group which participated in those difficult trials. So these kind of activities are also observed. Now marriage by elopement. It is a customary marriage in some societies, where as looked down in other. In societies where a huge amount of wealth is required for the marriage rituals, then you can also consider that if bride wealth is demanded high, then the couples go for elopement, and after that elopement practice, generally parents agree to perform their marriage, because otherwise it led to some kind of social stigma for that society. So to reduce or avoid that bride wealth, some kind of elopement practices are observed. Last topic for today is marriage payments, and our syllabus mentioned bride wealth and dowry, so we will discuss both. So bride wealth, as we have discussed, is usually a payment from groom side to bride to compensate for loss of economic or labor part that was performed by that girl in her household. So bride wealth is usually the compensation given upon marriage by the family of groom to the bride's family. Varieties of currencies and goods are used for paying the bride wealth depending upon the societies. Mostly the bride wealth is movable property given by the groom's family. For example, reindeers are given as bride wealth by reindeer herding Chukchi society, that is in Russia. Sheep by Navajo in Africa, cattle by Nuers again in Africa, and spears in Somalia. These kind of different payments are given in bride wealth, and generally they are movable because immovable properties it become difficult to maintain and use that property by a female after marriage. Now, amount of bride wealth to be paid is based on various factors, which some are related to status of bride family and other on the bride. So, depending upon the physical appearance of bride and her age, this bride wealth price is determined. And also, if there is earlier marriage of bride wealth, that means if any bride is going for second marriage, then generally this bride wealth amount is reduced. In some cases, if the groom's family is not able to pay the bride wealth, then the bride service is performed, as we have seen, where labor is provided by groom to compensate for bride wealth, wherein the groom goes to the bride house and helps in hunting, farming and other related activities. The time span of the bride service also varies from society to society, and it might last for a few months to several years. This bride wealth is done in order to compensate for women's share of labor in her family and her ability of fertility, because in those society this fertility part is considered as important. This type of marriage payment is found in subsistence economy, where there is a heavy labor by women, and I will say that these societies have more equality as compared to modern society, where this dowry practice is done, because in dowry some kind of negative connotation attached, that you have to give some amount so that other family can accept your daughter. So this negative connotation is not used in case of bride wealth. And also bride wealth shows that this woman labor and her fertility have some importance which should be valuable. Although in bride wealth also again that is a male head which determines what kind of money or what kind of amount should be paid, but bride wealth societies have more equality or less discrimination faced by women. The significance of bride wealth is that it values the contribution of a woman to her family or in that society. Now, dowry on the other hand is the transfer of goods and money from the bride's family to the groom's family, and this dowry practice and its problems, I think this is not need to be discussed in detail because everyone is aware about it. The significance of dowry is that, so here positive parts or some theories which explains why this dowry has originated. So significance of dowry is that it helps in establishing an alliance, because these gifts or exchange from bride to groom sides help in making an alliance, enable the new couple to start a household, because after marriage it is for the brides that their burden have reduced, because one person is entered into the groom's family, but for groom's family now expenditure has increased, so it helps groom's family to carry on extra burden or extra expenditure of a new family member. And also if this couple is living for a new local family, that means if they are establishing a new residential family away from both father as well as maternal side, then this money will help in establishing a new household. and it also protect the woman against abusive husband, because some kind of social status of that woman also increased by if she carries more gifts or more dowry with her. It helps in attaining hypergamy. That means now that woman can claim that you can't have relationship with other wife, as I have already given some price for this. Helps in improvement of a social condition of a man where he marries a richer girl. So it explaining that some kind of social mobility sometimes also happen when a poor man marries a rich woman. However, these are some of the positive points, but there are majority of negative points, which are that there is an increase in harassment of women and dowry deaths because of extortion of money by, and also it led to some abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. Thus an institution that was thought to be good is being misused for monetary benefits. So earlier these exchanges, maybe marriage payments or rituals, practices are considered as a part of ceremony rituals, which are used for legitimizing any particular ritual or social institutions like marriage, which earlier has more social as well as religious values, but now it has now turned into a contract where focus more on monetary benefits and obligations which that marriage will provide. So now this shift of value of marriage has been observed. Now previously a practice norm that is dowry in Hindu society, but now this tradition of dowry has been prohibited by law, that is 1960 anti-dowry prohibition law, and subsequently the section 304B and 498 of the Indian Penal Code also provide some provision which are related with dowry. The move was made to protect the women from dowry related harassment and domestic violence. And what kind of suggestions regarding reducing this harassment by dowry? You can write those points from general studies, which are very common. So here I have discussed majority of points which are related with marriage. Now another point is divorce or live-in relationships. These cases are rising. So here if some question regarding this is asked, then you have to define starting with marriage, then also explain that currently due to feminism, due to more focus on occupational mobility or women empowerment, these cases are rising. And again then explain your point which you can use your general studies knowledge, that these divorce cases are good from the perspective where women are raising voice against any injustice, but it is bad because now there are some cases where divorce cases are rising not because of this injustice practice, but because of rising intolerance in society or lack of adaptation on the part of both partners. Similarly, live-in relationship, you can mention that now this is legal in India, but it has some issues and it needs regulation, because if progeny is produced during this live-in relationship type, then issue of paternity will arise. Also, whether inheritance laws which are applicable in marriage, which will be allowed or applicable in live-in relationships or not. So again there are some issues present, so we need to regulate these practices. So I hope I have discussed origin, current practices, variations, and the future problems, and some suggestions that you can give. So that's all for today. Thank you so much, and if you are liking these videos, please like, share and subscribe Task IAS. Thank you so much.